All right. Item number 2, and this one is super important. It's, again, something that's affected me. Everything in this list is going to be something that's affected me. And the kinds of things that have held me back in the past, and the things that when I manage them better, man, my career has gone further ahead. And thing number 2, I see this in so many musicians. It's not only something I've seen in myself. I've seen so many musicians, music producers, audio engineers, and just creators of all types. And that is that you talk about your music before it's finished. Man, this is a really dangerous one. Talking about your music before it's done. I was reminded of a quote when this one popped into my head that I read years ago, I think in like the year 2007. The guitarist, John Frusciante, you might know him, Red Hot Chili Peppers guy, also did some really weird and really lovely kind of obscure solo records. If you like any of those John Frusciante solo records, let me know in the comments or in the chat there, but some really wild stuff. Listen to the track, I think Murderers is just absolutely beautiful. But John Frusciante, great guitar player, Red Hot Chili Peppers dude, he was interviewed in Tape Op magazine. And I had to go back and look up this quote because it stuck with me for the past, was this 15 years ago I read this quote? And it stuck with me so hard. The interviewer from Tape Op, guy named John, really nice guy, by the way. He asked John Frusciante, so you're working on a new record right now. Do you want to start off by talking about that? And John Frusciante responds, I don't know. I feel kind of funny doing that. I feel funny talking about something until it's done. I don't want to exhaust the ideas by turning them into verbosity or something. For me, making music, it's something you just do. Oh, and man, that one made the hair stand up on my arms when I read it. And I've seen it so many times, and I've seen it in my own life too. There's this chemical released by our brains called dopamine. And dopamine, it's like the chemical that is responsible for pursuit, moving towards a goal. Like it rewards you for moving towards a goal. And dopamine is what's hacked into by things like gambling, cocaine, but also, potentially video games, sports. Like there's so many different ways you can get dopamine. And pursuing a creative goal is a great, healthy way to get the dopamine going in your system. But if you start getting little rewards for talking about the music that you're going to do, oh man, you have already given yourself a free dopamine hit for like no effort. You're at a party, you're impressing people with tales of like the record you're gonna make and how good your band is gonna be. And people are like, seem like appreciative, and they seem, like, oh, that's cool. That's impressive. Oh, that's so interesting. You're a music-y, artisty person. And like, you got your reward right then and there. And it almost sucks away from the part of you that could be going out and pursuing, actually making the art, making the music, doing your best, grinding in the studio. Like that stuff that you have to do in silence, you need that to feel rewarding. I guess you're not doing in silence if we're talking about music production, but you know what I mean? Things that you're doing like outside of the public eye. You've got to be getting your dopamine hits from that. You've got to be getting your dopamine hits from, oh man, this next phrase, I think I know how to make this next phrase work in this arrangement, of this composition. Or, oh man, I know exactly what I do with the snare drum on this mix. Like those are the things you've got to be getting those dopamine hits off of. That's the thing that you have to be addicted to. And if you're addicted to telling people about what you're going to do and that you're a creative person, instead of demonstrating that to them and letting the actual work you've put out speak for itself, man, you'd be doing yourself a disservice. It's even worse if you're really successful at telling people about your music. Like, say you've gotten romantic interest from people because you've come across as like the cool music guy who does music stuff, or music gal, but I know my YouTube viewers are like overwhelmingly male. That's how YouTube skews. But it's like, imagine you get some like romantic success from being like the cool music guy, and all you had to do is talk about it. You've gotten such rewards without putting the work in. It makes it harder to do the work. You want to set yourself up so you're not giving yourself easy rewards from just talking about how creative you are or how creative you're going to be. Does this one make sense to you? Let me know in the comments below. I see that Vase has just became a member. We've opened up membership. It's another way to sponsor the channel on YouTube. 6to2 just became a member. Thanks, guys. Big ups to you for becoming members. We're going to be doing behind the scenes videos, Q&As that are for members only, mixed critique videos. I'll give you guaranteed responses to your comments if you leave comments on videos. There's a whole bunch of free perks. So if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, check out the YouTube channel. Consider becoming a member there. And thanks to all of you who have just become members. There's a ton of great perks. Just hit the join button on any of the YouTube videos to check that out. So this is a big thing. Number 2, that you talk about your music before it's finished. But I also have 2B. And this is another big thing that holds back particularly musicians and artists, is that you don't talk about your music after it's finished. People get this completely backwards. They talk about the work that they're going to do. Then they actually finally put all their effort and their heart and soul into making the record, making the magnum opus. And then what happens? They release it out into the world and they go, what now? This is actually the time you should be talking about your music and should be talking about your creative projects after they're already done. That's called marketing. And this is just as important as actually generating music. Marketing scares people. It scares new musicians, new artists. It feels dirty, this idea of marketing. I don't want to get into that stuff. I'm into the art, man. And it's like, I get it. But if you want to sustainably make art, and you want to do it potentially as a career or something that at least pays itself back and becomes like a sustainable hobby at a high level, if that's what you're shooting for, then you've got to do marketing, which means getting people who might like to hear your music to hear your music. The time to talk about the music projects that you've been doing is after they're done. Don't talk about them excessively before they're done. If you're talking to people about your music before it's finished, it should be because you're talking to a collaborator about how should we best do this piece of music. Don't talk to randos about music until after you're done. Only collaborators. And then after you're done, you want to talk to as many randos as possible. Get in front of as many random people as possible who could be fans and lovers of music. And that's your time to talk about your story and how creative you are, so that they'll actually listen to the stuff that you created. Because you need to tell stories to get people to hear your music. It's not enough to just put out a piece of music and then have no one ever hear it. And marketing, good marketing, is really storytelling, telling the truest but most interesting story you can that makes people say, okay, I'll give it a listen. And when you think honestly, you're going to realize that most of your favorite releases and favorite artists you discovered in great part because of the story that surrounded them. And that story opened you up to hearing their music in more detail. So that's number 2. We're pretty far into the podcast right now, and I've gone through 2 out of 10. Well, the rest are going to go a lot faster.